Hello and welcome to session 3 of Smart Reading Intervention Mastery. Hopefully you did find a student who was struggling with comprehension, and hopefully you've seen that starting to change already, and what a beautiful thing that is when you do. So today we are looking at the students who some people just give up on because they just don't think it's possible. And I want to show you how, by taking a different approach to phonics, the different approach to development of good decoding and blending and fluency, you can see these students really succeed. And of course, that's such a life-changing thing for them as ever. And also today we're going to be showing you something which I think you'll have never seen before, and it's really exciting for the implications of what's possible with it. So who are these students who struggle so much? They're the ones who find all decoding and blending hard. They've maybe done years of phonics and are still struggling with the very basics and have very poor GPC memory. Everything's a struggle for them. And a lot of people will look at that and say, well, after 4 or 5 years, we're sort of done here. And the student may feel that too. They will despair of progress. And what I'm here to show you today is that does not need to be the case. But to change that Groundhog Day of failure, we need to do something different, don't we? You'll know what Einstein thought about doing the same thing again and again, expecting a different outcome. Well, that's the same here, isn't it? If 4 or 5 years of standard phonics has not solve things for them, then it's important to try something different, and we can show you something different. We can show you something which is approaching this in a slightly different way, same aim but slightly different system to helping them practice this, because you know that reading is a skill. We need to practice it in order to master it, and if we get them practicing, then you can see good progress for these students. So what does it look like? Let's have a look at an example of this of an 11-year-old who is really struggling.
Cat.
Yeah.
Her axe.
Yeah.
Go axe.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what that is? If you don't, it's okay.
No.
Okay.
No? How about
House.
this one?
Yeah. Brilliant. So as ever, just put into the chat if you have seen students with this very weak phonics despite years of good teaching. Is that a pattern that you've come across? Have they then usually made fast progress when you do more standard phonics intervention? Or would you like to try something new? Something they've not seen before? Okay, let's recap the neural path of reading so that we can see where the problem is. So we know that the reading starts in the eyes, and the signal goes to the visual cortex where the letters are recognized. The letter information is passed to the letterbox cortex where the GPCs are analyzed, and that information is passed to the auditory cortex as an auditory signal, so that you can hear the sounds and the words and blend them to form the words. So it is in this process, isn't it, that the problem has developed. So knowing that, our starting place is the visual to auditory cortex is not linking fluently and accurately. So what we need to do is strengthen that letterbox cortex so that the signal is flowing through it, and they can start to decode in the normal way. The question is, we've tried that for years. We've been trying to get that happening. It hasn't worked. What is the solution? So I'm going to give you something completely new on this. The key thing with this is that all neural links strengthen with activation. That is the basis of all learning. If you work neural links, they will get better and stronger and faster. Now, that doesn't mean that we could all become concert pianists by sitting at a piano for hours a day. Some people have a natural facility too, but we can all get to play a simple tune, can't we, on a piano? I mean, that's within everybody's ability if they do the practice. And so we need a way to boost that activation of the letterbox cortex for these students. And what we do is we scaffold the decode with trainertext. So this is going to be exciting if you have not seen trainertext before. Now, to make you really appreciate the power of trainertext, I'm going to take your ability to read away, because until you are struggling to read yourself, you will not understand how helpful it is. So here is a book from early in our phonics program, All Aboard Phonics. It's from about week sort of 5 or 6. It's a very simple book, but I've put it into the Greek alphabet instead of the English alphabet. So you can see that it makes it a little harder to read, doesn't it? And of course, you know, we forget, don't we, that when you're first learning to read, this is a bit sort of what text looks like. You're still trying to get to grips with what all the letters are and work them out, you know, word by word. So in a moment, you will be able to read this pretty fluently. I can promise you. Let's go through it with trainertext. So here's that first line. And now above the letters, you've got our pictophones. So these are sound representations with image, so pictophone. And above that first word, you've got the pen, the intestine, and the gate. There are certain ones which don't have easy images to, you know, when you first look at them. One of them is the intestine, because there are very few objects that start with the I sound. So the igloo would have worked, but it's too wide for the letter I. So you got P for pen, I for intestine, and G for gate. Pig. So that first word is pig. Then you got is, that's the zigzag, is, at. So you can already see that the letter S has two different pictophones above it in different words. And that is the nature of this, is the pictophones are completely regularly connected to one phoneme, one pictophone. But the letters are not. So you will find, especially as you progress through the phonics curriculum, that the pictophones above the vowels change hugely. I mean, the letter A can have 11 different pictophones above it. Amazing. So, pig is sat, in, the, at. Pig is sat in the hut. So the key thing here is once you've done the decode, you then want to read it through again, all the way through fluently. It might take a couple of goes. So just do that now. Look at that sentence. Read through the letters to get that phrase or that sentence. Pig is sat in the hut. Well, he's now left the hut. Pig has sun mud. Pig has sun, mud, and buns. Pig has sun, mud, and buns. Just quickly read it through again so that your brain is absorbing these GPCs with these new letters. Pig has sun, mud, and buns. There are the buns. They look more like rolls to me, actually, those ones. That's the 4, so fun, fun, fun. Oh yeah. Pig is a happy pig. Bun, bun, bun. The buns are disappearing. Ooh, this is slightly chopped, this, but you can get it, I think. 10 buns. Pig is sick. Pig is sick. 10 buns. Pig is sick. Oh dear. Pig has gas. Pig has gas. Pig tells rat. Pig tells rat. Poor old pig. Rat tells pig. Hop and kick. Go pig. Off he goes. Hiss. No. Oh, that's the omega above the O there. No. Pig. So no would have been a tricky word at this stage of the phonics, because we definitely haven't introduced the O sound for the letter O. So now we introduce the word no as a tricky word. It's out of sequence, but also here the student has the support of the trainer text, because we will introduce the omega just as a random phoneme early, so they could got no pig. Hiss, no pig. Oopsie. Okay. There we go. We've been through it. Have a look at it again. See if you can read it through. And read each line until it's fluent. That third line is fun, fun, fun. We didn't. It's the only time we see the theta for the f. And that capital G is in the second last line is go pig. Hiss, no pig. Okay, so you've now read it through, and here's poor old rat suffering. So the big test with this is does it transfer? So we helped you read those words. Can you now read these words? These are words you've not seen before, or some of them. Let's have a look. Pat sits and sips in the sunset. There you go. So that is your introduction to trainertext. I hope that was quite exciting. Can you see that if we did that again and again, you would actually get pretty good at that Greek pretty quickly. And I've actually done enough sort of working with these bits of Greek text that the Athens undergrad has got easier for me, I can promise you. Now, something to be aware of is that blending itself can be a challenge too. So let's have a look at that. Do you currently have a good solution for blending difficulty? Just pop that in the chat. So this is somebody, you've tried and tried, but they're just not blending the sounds. And if a child can't blend, they cannot progress. So this is our technique to overcome the blending problem, which is the segment-reblend technique. It will seem crazy, but when you test it, it works every time. So the student chooses a word. They can choose any word, ideally a short, fairly straightforward word. The student then segments it into phonemes. Now, if they don't get it perfect, that's fine. So they say they pick the word house, they should go house. But if they go house, that's fine. We want to build their confidence, so don't correct them, just that they've done their best segment. They now blend those phonemes back again into that word. So they've gone house, house, house. And they do that 5 times with 5 words each day. And you'll find that by the end of the week, their blending has been transformed. It's worked every time that we have used it. And that choosing their own word is really crucial, I think, because what I imagine is happening is that it's like a new game they're sort of playing a little bit themselves, through the day as they think about words they're listening to. And so that's what accelerates the progress. Now, when you're working with these students, and frankly with any student, in our opinion, there are 3 pillars of good reading practice which are essential for that maximum progress. The first is they must decode and blend every word accurately. And so that's where the trainertext is really helping these students, because it means they can decode and blend them, and then they get that practice to get faster and faster at it. But that will be massively accelerated if they do that phrase reread. If I had just gone through that story word by word by word all the way through to the end, how easy would you have found going through it again? How easy would you have found that last sentence? Much less easy, I would say. It's that phrase, working a phrase until it's fluent, that really accelerates the progress. And I think it's because it's floating this into the subconscious. All fluent reading happens in the subconscious, not the conscious brain. And the phrase reread makes that happen more quickly. And then, of course, we're building the strong internal vocalization that we discussed last week in order to get comprehension. So, what in reality can you expect with these students who have struggled so much? Well, the first thing is that when you show this to them, you should see a different sense of optimism and hope, literally as you explain the trainertext. They'll look at that and think, oh, I'm getting that. I can imagine working through these words successfully. And as you introduce the trainertext, you explain it, you demonstrate it, and then you switch over. And as they start reading words successfully, you really celebrate that, so that their optimism and their confidence is rising as you explain the whole process. We then routinely see clear improvements of accuracy and fluency over the first month, to the point where they're needing the trainer text less already within 3 or 4 weeks. And then generally for these students, that don't have any complications with sort of memory and general learning difficulty, they've just had this difficulty with phonics, then we would expect good solid reading to be embedded in 120 sessions. So it's about 3 or 4 months. So they're gaining, years of reading age pretty quickly. Now it depends where they're starting. If they're sort of like 8-year-olds and they're 2 years behind, then in that time they'd probably catch up those 2 years. If they're older, we actually see quicker progress, and so generally a month of intervention would achieve probably 5 months of reading age gain, maybe more. So that's what to expect. So the task for the week is to find that student, if there's one in the school, and I'm sure there will be. Find that student, show them the trainer text, and see their reaction to it, and then send us your observations, and that's it. And next week is a really interesting one.